All right. Welcome, everyone. This is Diane Sears, and I'm with Go for the Greens. I'm one of the co-founders of our organization. We are all volunteer run, and a lot of our volunteers have been with us, watching us and helping us produce this series. This is actually the last one in a series that we've done. This is it's 12 or number 13, isn't it, Cindy? And so we've been doing this since April. We're so glad you could join us. We have a great show today. We want to introduce two people who are here from Nike. Paige Whaley, why don't you say hello?
Hi guys, so happy to be with you today.
And Dee, Dee, why don't you pronounce your name for me?
It's Akpaete.
Akpaete, okay, great, and Dee. Wonderful. So I'll tell you a little bit about us. We are as I said, a nonprofit, and our focus is to help women-owned businesses be better and stronger than they are now. And so we're built on 4 pillars. One pillar is about business growth. Another pillar is about sustainability. Another is about teaching women how to play golf and use that as a business tool the way men always have. And our 4th and newest pillar is about grooming young women into becoming either entrepreneurs or business leaders or both. And so that's what this program is all about. This is our mentorship program with Go for the Greens. I'd like to turn it over to my co-founder, Cindy Chase, for a minute to talk about what else we do.
Hey, thank you, Diane. And thank you for our stellar participants, Leslie and Jasmin. You two are just rock stars for helping us go through the 12th, I think this is 11 or 12th time we've done this. And for those of you that are participating, Go for the Greens, just so you know, we do have a mentorship program. Please go to our website and there is an application. We will have a program in September or maybe August. I don't know, Diane, when the final decision is on that. But for those of you that want to participate in the mentorship program, please make sure you visit our website, and we look forward to helping you change your future for the positive direction.
Right. So because of COVID, everything has changed around, and our conference is in late September, and we always have a component of it where we invite our mentorship program participants to come and join us at Walt Disney World. Well, so this year that won't happen. And we're looking at some timing and when that will, what will take place. But we do know that Leslie and Jasmin, as our 2 superstar hosts of this show, will actually be helping us host our mentorship program and our program for our women business owners this year. So we're pretty excited about that. And just stay tuned, and we'll get some more information out to everybody about when the mentorship program will be. It'll probably be on a Saturday rather than a Friday as it usually is. And it will be virtual, so everyone can participate from around the world. With that, I'd like to introduce our 2 interviewers. Are you all ready?
Yep.
Okay. And so we have Leslie Garcia-Medina. Leslie, if you could say hello.
Hello.
All right. And we have Jasmin Alanis. And if you could say hello, Jasmin.
Hi, everyone.
And so now that you've met our interviewers, I'm going to turn this over to them, or to their very able hands. And thank you for running the show. And we look forward to hearing all about the 2 Nike guests.
Yeah, so before we begin, Leslie and I wanted to give a big thank you to our 2 speakers today, Dee and Paige. And without further ado, here's Leslie with our first question.
Hello, everyone. So Paige and Dee, we kind of wanted to hear a little bit about you guys, your background, and how that led to your career at Nike. So I don't know if Dee or Paige wants to go first.
Yeah, sure. I'll take that one. And thank you both, first of all, for being such great interviewers. I'm super excited for this experience. So my background, I went to undergrad at Cornell University, and there I majored in business with a focus on strategy and on marketing. And I just had such a passion for the business world, how like corporations operate. And so when I had the opportunity to join Nike, the position available was a rotational program. And so that allowed you to move into different areas of the business, be that supply chain, marketing, be that technology, and really experience the different aspects of business and corporations. And I was in that program for 3 years after joining Nike. And then now I'm a sourcing manager within marketing. Pretty linear path.
All right, is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so my path to Nike was a lot less linear, I guess. And I think to start, I want to acknowledge that, you know, we don't all start from the same baseline. And so as someone who has benefited from white privilege throughout my entire life, and specifically in my career path through access, opportunities, promotions, it's been so ingrained in my story, and it often goes unspoken and unnoticed by me even. So I think that that's something that's important to acknowledge. And with this amazing group of women here, I think we have the opportunity to acknowledge that and choose to uplift and amplify and support our Black, Indigenous, and women of color colleagues throughout our careers to ensure that they're getting the same access and opportunities as us. So I wanted to kind of frame that before I proceed with kind of my background, because I did benefit from that and still do. So I started my career in music, and I started when I was 13 years old teaching. So I was always an entrepreneur at heart. And when I was 15, I joined a Montessori school teaching music in their summer music programs, which led to volunteering in nonprofit organizations for kids in inner city Portland that were at risk, getting opportunities to mentor, and really finding who I was and the things that make me tick. And of course, that led me to music school. And I went to Portland State University and studied music, got my degree. So my path to Nike was not planned. And I always thought that I would be in music. All of the experiences I had before my mid-20s were in music. So if you're on a completely different path right now and you don't know what the next 10 years looks like, that's fine, because that's definitely my story. But it was through people that I knew through family members. It was connecting and networking through the nonprofits works that actually led me out of the music industry and into IT, and eventually over to Nike, doing contract work for the first couple years. And I've been at Nike now 5 years and am sitting in global procurement. I love the work that I do as a global supplier relationship manager. And I think the things that naturally made it a good fit for me was relationship building, and the things that I had learned through those years of developing my students and working with people in my nonprofit work. So that's kind of what led me to Nike.
Leslie, you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I really like what was said about Dee. You mentioned that your kind of your career was already like linear. It was like set up, and so it's really interesting to hear how yours was already kind of it was like I said, it was set up, like it was already meant. And then for Paige, you kind of started off with music, and you went off to other things, and then you ended up at Nike. So I believe this question was for Dee. Cynthia Washington asked, "What is a sourcing manager?"
Amazing. And that's a really great question, Cynthia. So our role is in global procurement. And so when you think about procurement, the most common idea is around buying. So realistically, we're buying things for Nike. And so what sourcing managers do is that they look at whatever commodity needs to be purchased. In some areas, mine is marketing. In some areas, it might be materials. So if Nike needs to find plastic materials to then put into their shoes, the sourcing manager would then look at all the suppliers who offer that specific material, that specific grade, research where it's coming from, research sustainability measures, ensure that we're partnering with the right people, and that it's at the right place and at the right price. And so we're an optimizing function that partners with the different areas of the business that requires different resources, and we help connect the dots with those resources. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Jasmine, your question?
Oh, yes. I didn't realize you asked the second one. I'm so sorry. So before COVID, we were in offices, and now there's that transition to remote work. And we wanted to ask, what does your everyday schedule look like? And if you could incorporate before and after COVID.
Paige, do you want to take this one first?
Sure. I think that I'm always trying to find work-life balance, especially because I am in my dining room right now. And so my work is here, and there's always work to do. So it seems like from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, work is on my mind and it's available to do here. But since COVID, I think the biggest change is really, it's even the playing field for our teammates in the geos. And so we're being a lot more flexible in meeting times because we don't have to commute into the office. That's been removed. So for instance, Dee and I have a meeting every other week at 6 a.m. and teammates from China and Europe are on the call, and we all are, meeting together at our own crazy times and connecting and collaborating. So you can have calls as early as 6 now, and that's very normal, or sometimes I have calls as late as 8:30 and 9. So days can look a little bit different on COVID time.
No, that's a perfect description too. So for me, I think similar to what Paige says, it's just opened up the opportunities to connect to people that we don't normally. So sitting in an office, it's very easy to see your teammates that you normally see regularly and see different stakeholders. So I'll back up and, as part of Cynthia's question also, the way that I interpret what we do is a little bit of internal consulting. And so we have essentially clients of people who are internal to Nike and external that we just help and we facilitate. And so previous to COVID, there was a lot of travel involved. As you saw, you want to see your clients and your partners, you want to see them face to face, because there's typically that connection and that just ease of conversation that happens when you're relating one-on-one. So it was a lot of meetings, a lot of traveling, and just a ton of communication. As Paige mentioned, it's a very relationship focused company. And so it's just building that network and building that communication. Post-COVID, it's super fascinating because we were just talking about introverts and extroverts as well. I think video chatting and just having easier access to communication just allows people who normally would be in the back of a crowd or don't feel comfortable asking a question. You can pop it in the chat, or you connect with people that you don't know and you just build that relationship. And so I think a lot more people are getting involved at every different level, different geographies. So we're able to talk with our Greater China team, similar to how we were going to talk with our European team, whereas before it was a little bit more centralized to North America. So that was an exciting shift, and just to see a balance in people taking the time back to realize work is a job in a lot of senses too, and that we're humans outside of that job. And so you see people connecting with their family, connecting with their friends, and that's been an amazing human element that I've seen brought to the job as well.
Yeah, thank you for your responses. It's super interesting to hear about what you guys do, your work and your schedules. Is there something that that is your favorite part? What's your favorite part about your job?
I can take this one. I think one of my favorite parts is the ability to connect with our team members in the geos and all over the world. We have such an amazing workforce at Nike, and so getting to meet with them on a weekly basis and build those relationships that's so meaningful to me, and that's just authentically I'm very relational by nature, but also it gives me exposure to how Nike works as a global company, and that has always been fascinating to me. So the fact that this job now affords me that exposure, really love that.
Awesome. My favorite part would actually just be around, yeah, similarly, people and connection. So what that looks like is after like a really good team meeting in which everyone's been heard, everyone's been given the opportunity to speak, to share, to talk about what they've been doing and the projects that they've been working on. Because it's a large global team. I think we have around 200 people globally. And so it's very easy to get focused on what you're doing and your specific projects. But it's nice to walk out of a room and say, like, I know exactly how my teammate is feeling. I know exactly how they're doing and what they're working on. And if I know how I can connect with them and something like I have this like side project or like a passion. And so it's using things that you're already doing and just like elevating each other and supporting each other through that as well.
I like how you guys mentioned that communication, how we were talking about like extroverts and introverts. And so obviously a big part of your job is communicating with other people. I think Paige mentioned that you guys speak to people from like China and Europe and all of that. And so in your opinions, what are some skills that you think we should have, or anybody in general, when you're working with a career like this?
That's a really good question. So, I mean, communication is multifaceted, right? So there's different types of communicators. There's different mediums through which you can communicate. For example, some people communicate through storytelling, and in a sense, we're all storytellers, but you know, you can communicate through body language, and that can be how you tell your story. Or you can be sending an email, and that's common. You can call, you can like video chat, and all of those send different messages. So it's a little bit of a fun game to try and figure out like everyone's personality and like what they would react best to, and then understand what you want and like what your needs are. I'm someone who typically doesn't love video call, but I work with people who do. And so it's nice to get to know that. So just communication. But then, you know, tough skin as well, because it is a corporation. It is something in which you have to work really hard. And be told no. And so understanding your skills, your talent, and being able to find new opportunities and to push all comes with just like being tough and getting after things.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, you know, you have to be able to embrace that uncertainty and enjoy kind of quickly changing environments. Like Dee was saying, you know, you might get a rejection it's not personal, just, okay, what's next? And really also enjoy problem solving. So when I look back to things I did in high school or projects I took on in college that required me to feel a little uncomfortable and, you know, feel like I was stretching myself a bit, I still draw on that well of experience to inform how I approach problem solving now. So never underestimate the things that you've learned from your past to help inform how you approach something. Companies really enjoy you bringing your own unique ideas to the table. Nike loves people that have, you know, fresh new perspectives. And so that's going to serve you well when you can take your unique experience and bring that to your team.
Are there any other skills you would say that you've developed since you began working at Nike?
So I'm not sure if it's one of our maxims, but for some reason I just have in my head like fail fast, which is around the same kind of idea. It's trying to figure out what you don't know and what you're uncomfortable with, what you know you just need to develop, and then exploring resources first internally by yourself, and then learning how to ask other people for help. So that's something that personally I struggled with. I consider myself a fairly independent person, but nobody's perfect. Nobody has all the answers. And as we've learned, like people come from all sorts of backgrounds and have so many different skills that sometimes all it takes is like asking them like one perfect question and like you just solved like 20 hours of like figuring out Excel work, you know? And so, yeah, I've gotten better at Excel, but in some areas I don't have to use Excel. So I think the biggest asset that I've learned is like when to ask other people for help to draw on their expertise.
That's,
Yeah,
that's so good, Dee. Can I add to that too?
Oh,
yeah,
let's do it.
go ahead.
Yes, asking questions, that is still something that I'm working on, by the way. But it's so important. And then I think some other skills that I've had to develop that are not natural to me is around leadership and using my voice and sharing my opinions. Because sometimes you're going to want to ask a question or you're not quite sure, but it's just, there's 10 to 1, there's 2 other people at least in the meeting that want to ask the same question as you. So, you know, keep things simple, trust your instincts, ask questions. But yeah, those are some other skills I've learned. So yeah.
Yeah, I really like the point you made earlier about embracing uncertainty, because I feel personally for me, that's something that I struggle with. I think not knowing the future freaks me out a lot. And so I'm really glad you made that point. And it's been interesting to hear your journeys at Nike. You know, for you, it wasn't a straight line. And for D, you started out as a rotational. So that's really interesting. And are there any things you wish you would have known at the start of your career?
I guess, Jasmin, like similar to what you were saying, like having uncertainty may freak you out, but if you think about how successful you are at this point in your life, like you've always operated with that same sense of uncertainty, and yet you got here and you're, you know, interviewing and you're, you know, like you've developed like a career for yourself and you've developed a path for yourself. And so recognizing that you're already doing the things that make you great, it's just like being aware of it and reminding yourself of it. So we recently went through a performance review. It's like our performance review time at the company. And I think what's just always so amazing about it is like people tell you things about your performance and like the way you work. And especially for some things, like you already know, right? You just have to be told, you have to be reaffirmed. And so I just wish I could have known that I was already enough. I didn't have to be anybody else. I didn't have to do anything different. I could just be myself and work on becoming my best self.
Yes, exactly what Dee said. That was, yeah, absolutely. I think that as women, we're oftentimes taught to like second guess ourselves and second guess our value that we bring. And so I wish the same thing. I wish I would have known, like, I belong here and I have something of value to bring. And I also wish that I would have known the commute from Northeast Portland to Beaverton would have been so tough back and forth. But you know what? Problem solved. I'm working from home now most of the time.
I was going to mention about what Jasmin said, well, Dee said it actually, about embracing yourself. And Paige touched over it a little bit too. And I think with times, especially with society now, you know, there's a lot of expectations that we have to meet within, like whether it be being a woman or being like anything in general. It's just, you know, you have to be, for me personally, I've always struggled with my weight. And so obviously that was a lot of the times it was like a little, how do you say, like rock in the road or like a pebble in the road. You know, it was very difficult for me to get to where I wanted to be. And so now in high school, it's, you know, my GPA, my test scores, you know, like those kind of things kind of stop you. So our next question would be like, what is something that we should be doing now in high school or in college, you know, that would eventually get us to a career that you guys have?
I love this question because I think it goes back around to asking for help. And Leslie, I think similarly, like as a Black woman, I never wanted to be a person who didn't know the answer. And so I'll think about it from the college lens particularly. I didn't go to office hours. because like I didn't want to be the dumbest person in the room, right? Or like that you have several advisors at every step. Like you have counselors, you have teachers, people that you may not like have classes with, but they're still an elder, they're still someone that you can go to for advice. And so my advice is to draw upon your broader network and your broader community. Like you have people who think like you, who can support you, who look like you, who are willing to uplift you. But then it's also just as important to make sure that you're seen and that other people know your value, for the people who don't look like you. Yeah, and I think just like my biggest thing is like, I wish I could have gone to those office hours. Like my GPA would have been higher, you know, and there's nothing wrong with just asking.
Yeah, I definitely agree with reaching out to your network. I remember when I had graduated from music school, graduated from college, and I was really honestly lost. I was working 7 days a week teaching piano, I was making poverty wages. Honestly, I couldn't live on my own. I was still living with my parents in my mid-20s. And I sat down one day and was crying. And I thought, how am I ever going to travel and do the things I want, or even just like pay for my own rent or get health insurance? Got kicked off my dad's health insurance at 26. What am I going to do? And so I started looking in my network of people and asking them, do you know any business owners or financial advisors that maybe will have 5 minutes with me? And I offered to buy them coffee and said, hey, can I just have 5 minutes of your time? I have questions. I stayed curious and I asked a lot of questions. I went to a lot of interviews and got rejected for like a year and a half before I got my first opportunity outside of music. But truly it was just like Dee said, asking for help and reaching out. And for me, I got down and figured out exactly how much I wanted to make in order to be able to move into an apartment that I really liked. And then I was bold and I asked for that. And one thing also that I think is important to note, just for women, I think we should always counter offer. And I stand by that. Whenever you do get your first job offer, counter offer, because I have a piano student whose parent is a research scientist and he hires all the time. And he said in his long career, every single male he has given a job offer to has counter offered. And only one female that he has offered a job to has counter offered. And so when he told me that, I decided that every job offer I was going to receive from then on out, I would counter, because guess what? You're worth it. And the worst thing that can happen is that they say no. That's all. They're not going to think worse of you or less of you. They're probably just going to be like, oh, wow, maybe I should be offering them more. And I can also say I've never been denied a counteroffer. So do it, be bold, and go for it.
I actually want to add on to that because that's such amazing advice. And Paige, that was such a good idea to bring that up. Yeah, like likewise, I'm always negotiating. And if, let's say they don't accept your counteroffer, just to make sure you're getting a fair deal. Because like, once again, whether or not they accept that asking price that you, like what you shared, the question next to ask is, how can I make sure that I'm being compensated fairly for my position or against my peers? Like, how do I make sure that I'm making as much as a man would make or as much as someone who's not a minority? And like, ask that question directly. That way people ensure that, yeah, that you are being paid a fair value. And then the other thing is like, establishing a community is super important at every step in your life. Because now I'm able to rely on like my Black girlfriends, I'm able to rely on my girlfriends, I'm able to rely on like the LGBT community. Like, and there's different aspects, right, that you can touch and tie into at different chords of your life. And they make you feel seen and they make you feel heard. It's a safe space that keeps you going. Whenever you're having like a bad day and you're like, oh, I don't know, like Paige, like, I don't know if I can do anything else. You call someone, they have your back because you have that community established.
Leslie, is that for you? The question, next question?
That was it for my questions.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I was just confused with the order. Um, and in your experience, would you have said that your work experience or your education has been more valuable to the career you have now?
Do you want me to start with this one, Dee?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so I think, yes, education is always important. And there's a value for empowering yourself through education. But I also think that experiences speak volumes. And, there's a saying, people don't really care how much you know, but they'll always remember how you make them feel. And that's I think that has really I've internalized that through my career and like really seen just how powerful that is when I'm bringing, my full authentic self and really curious about the people that I'm working with and wanting to understand and collaborate with them. And I'm willing to pull from my experiences and contribute that to the mix, rather than, you know, entering every room with my degree. That doesn't work for me, for my situation. So I had to rely on my experience, that kind of related to the skills I needed for the job. So for me, I think experiences do speak volumes, and it has been more helpful than my actual degree. But education is absolutely wonderful and important.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think not only just for, like, it's nothing that you have to use yourself to you don't have to prove anything. And so while education can be just something that gets you in the door, it's also a level of comfort that you have that you know your stuff and you are meant to be there. And so what I would say is to draw from your education, but learn from your experience in the workforce. And how I think about that is we're going through a time of civil unrest, and having the language and having the education and having the materials from my past, from college, like I took a lot of those, I took, sociology classes, I took human and evolution classes. And so having that background puts me in a place where I feel comfortable bringing that to my coworkers and making sure that our current team is a place where everyone feels comfortable and feels valued, because I know how to facilitate those conversations. I know how to have those discussions, and I know that they're important. And I wouldn't have that without, learning about history, learning about the government. It's all related. And you use that to just make your workplace a better place by understanding those different pieces.
Thank you. Leslie, is your question next?
There's actually a question in the chat. Diane said, great advice on counter offering and on asking questions about money when you're interviewing. Who would you recommend you approach to get help to help you with those kinds of skills? Teachers, guidance counselors, your parents, your parents' friends who are in the business?
I'd say all of the above. Whoever you feel most comfortable with and have a relationship with. I remember when I got that advice before I started interviewing, and then I decided to counteroffer that very first time. The woman who had actually told me about the job and she wrote a letter, like a reference letter for me. She worked at the company. And I told her, hey, I'm planning to counteroffer. And she said, oh, no. I mean, why would you do that? And I said, oh, well, I just think that it's, nothing can go, like, why not? That's what I told her. So she didn't even actually support me. And I just decided to do it anyways. And guess what? I got it. So I think that sometimes you're not always going to get the support that you're looking for. And I haven't always gotten it, but the places to look would definitely be the people that you have established relationship. And like Dee was saying earlier, the people that make you feel seen, the people that make you feel supported and truly get who you are and remind you of who you are when you're feeling low or when you're not feeling yourself. Go to those people to give you a boost of confidence. That always helps.
That's amazing. I think specifically with the negotiations I've been involved with, one, just think of it as like not even a negotiation, it's a conversation. And that's the biggest barrier, because like it can be scary, just like, oh, like what am I worth? But it's like they should know, that you're probably worth more than what they're offering. But as far as like those kinds of skills, like that's storytelling, right? That's market research. So before you have this conversation, you should be checking on job websites, understanding what the job salary range is, and then figuring out where with your skills you fall in that. I recommend you always be talking to your teachers, your guidance counselors, saying like, what do you know about me? And if they don't, let's say your guidance counselor doesn't know you, they should. And so, hey, like, what do you know about me? How can I be better? And like, how can I be more competitive applying to college, applying to this job? And that way you can use them as a resource as well. And if it's HR specific and this is a position that has HR, make sure that they know and that they're going to bat for you, because they can see, they can see those ranges and they'll let you know.
And one last thing I'd say is, as a general rule, in my experience, I've noticed that people always kind of give me a lowball offer to start. And I think they do that expecting or building in some room to counter or to negotiate. So just ask yourself, am I leaving money on the table? If I just accept this right away because I'm so grateful for the opportunity, even if you're feeling a little imposter syndrome and you're like, oh my God, I got the job. I know I've done that. Don't worry about that. Silence that voice. Take a minute. Tell them that you'll get back to them. You need to review everything and look at it. Take your time, and just know that you can always counter. So.
And actually, sorry, Judy had a great point to that, which is essentially within the interview, she didn't like the location, and she's like, pause, hesitated a little bit, and they immediately offered more money. One, silence is one of the greatest tactics in negotiation. So that's just another thing. If you pause, just give yourself that space, like people will leap to fill in that space. And so that's typically where you'll see that jump. But then also give yourself options, give yourself that flexibility. So if you do have other options, like make sure you're interviewing at multiple places. Or even if you don't, even if you just say, hey, I have another offer that looks like this. It doesn't have to exist. Even if they say, oh, we can't match that, that's fine. Like that other offer doesn't really exist. And either way, you get your leverage by giving yourself options.
For me, I work with mental health, so I'm in 2 clubs in high school, and so one focuses on like suicide prevention, and another focuses on just mental health in general, with like depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And our next question is actually, what challenges do you face on a day-to-day basis? So I know Paige mentioned about how a lot of the time she didn't have that support that she expected to have. So what are some other challenges that you would say you faced on your day-to-day basis, and how did you overcome those? Or what are some advice or tips that you would give us when we're facing challenges?
Paige, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure, of course. So I think I wrote in, I was kind of preparing for this question earlier because I was like, oh, that's a hard one. So trusting my instincts, I think I've actually really relied on D in a lot of situations at work where I'm like, am I right on here? Or am I a little bit off? Or how did I show up here? Because of imposter syndrome, like I keep coming back to, I think it plagues a lot of people, especially women in leadership. So just because you see a really strong woman who's in a leadership position, don't assume that she's totally confident and feels like super great all the time, because it gets to every single one of us. And so that's something that it's a daily practice for me, is to trust my instincts and trust myself, and also to speak up when I see something that feels off or is off. I think that's a challenge that I face on a daily basis, to just practice speaking up. And it's not always going to be comfortable, but practice makes perfect, right? So.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. I would say, I mean, it's similar in just like the idea of confidence, right? And so I think something that I also struggle with is the idea that I have to be a representative for all Black women everywhere. So if I'm late to a meeting, I'm worried, how's that gonna look for Black people? If I wear my hair natural, how's that gonna look for Black people, Black women specifically? And so there's always that pressure and all that weight. And whenever I make an error, I expand the locus of control that I have over it, which is not realistic. And so the way that I combat that is, one, the things that are within your control, don't be late. The things that are a little bit more institutionalized with something like hair, it's, let's say that I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable about it. Let's say I talk to Paige and say, hey, I'm not feeling great about this. Like, I just need your support. Like, how do I look? And she says, oh, you look great. And just giving myself that grace to show up as myself. And so like, maybe then I show up with my hair natural and I give somebody else that inspiration and that vision to also show up natural. And so it's around finding community, once again, finding that safe space and realizing that you are not a representation of your entire community. You are yourself. And once again, like that's enough. And, you know, people will tell you things about who you are. And I recommend, one, getting into mindfulness, getting into therapy. Therapy is so important, so important. Making sure that you are in the right headspace to perform whatever task it is, I think has been extremely beneficial for me to feel like I can show up at work and feel refreshed and ready to go and authentic.
I'm sorry, I was writing down what you said about you are not a representation of your community. I really love that. There was a question in the chat by Cynthia Washington. She asked, what is the major difference in your roles because they sound very similar?
Oh yeah, I think I got a question earlier and I didn't answer. It was a private question in the chat. So my role, I'm rather than sourcing, because it sounds like Dee, it's yours more of a sourcing role. Mm-hmm. So I am a supplier relationship manager, and the work that I do, I partner with the sourcing person that is in the same capacity as Dee, but my work revolves around fostering the relationship between the Nike teams. So our Nike stakeholders in my area specifically would be in the technology group, and the suppliers that we're partnering with. And so in my space, I manage contingent labor. So we contract out extra workforce to help us get what we need to get done. And as you can imagine, when you have so many people coming together, speaking different languages, you know, you've got the technical minded people, and then you've got the more business minded people, and that can create a lot of friction, right? So my job is to come in and be a facilitator and help people communicate with one another so that we're optimizing the contracts that we have in place. And so say Dee puts a contract in place, she's done all this amazing work, got us the right supplier, the right materials, it's all sustainable. It's, you know, preferably a woman-owned business. And so when we get to that point and we have this contract established, now she's going to lob that over the fence to me, and I'm going to make sure that we're really getting all the value we can out of that contract. We're meeting on a regular basis with the supplier to give them immediate feedback on the success of that relationship and any opportunities that they have to show up better, and then also solicit the feedback from them on how Nike can show up better to them, because we want to win as a team. And I think in my role, the thing that I really love and that speaks to my values as a person is, hey, when one of us wins, doesn't matter if you're the supplier or the Nike person, we all win and we celebrate that win together. So that falls right with our Nike Maxim, win as a team. And that's so important when you're building those relationships. So that's what I do. That's my job.
Love that. That is such an apt description. That's perfect. And so, yeah, similarly in the capacity that I work together with like Paige and like Paige's function, as a marketing sourcing manager, let's say, so Until We All Win is like one of our like large campaigns. and one of Nike's large campaigns. And so behind that, what you'll probably see is you'll see a marketing agency that's helping shoot the film, shoot the different scenes. They are helping contract out with the athletes that you'll see in the commercial. The scouting, the research, they'll help with the tone, like what tone are we trying to strike in this environment? And so my job is to, one, find that agency, like who are we gonna be partnering with? Like what geographically makes sense? Because I think what we understand is different people speak different languages, come from different communities, all will be able to relate differently to each other, understand nuance. And so my job is to partner with a team and ask like, well, what do you need? What do you want? And ensure they're getting it at a cost competitive basis. And so we're continuously working together throughout effectively what's a campaign to get to their final goal. Let's say their goal is, hey, we want 50 billion people just to see this, right? My job is to figure out, well, what channel? Should that be on Instagram? Should that be on Facebook? My job is to understand those kinds of things and ensure that Nike is getting the best deal as well. And then in that, that's when we also realize, like Paige said, we're on the same team. And so where our function is not meant to minimize the profits of others, it's meant to partner and just make sure that both of us are getting the best terms. Like no one entity or corporation feels put out, but we're all both coming together to put together a product that the final consumer is like, yes, Nike, I'm sobbing right now with how amazing this commercial is.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was just, so I think just hearing your responses, I feel that Nike has not only been rewarding on the professional level, but also on your personal level. Is there a particular experience or project that you felt the most rewarded, the most rewarding?
Yeah, Paige, you want me to take that?
Yeah.
It's actually unrelated to sourcing. Paige and I are both part of Culture and Community, which is a group meant to figure out how we can bring our team together, how everyone can feel included and safe, and how we can connect to the work that we're doing, the place that we are, meaning the different geos, or in our case, like Portland, Oregon, and then to Nike as a broader brand, because it's like a very young, fun, fresh brand. And so something that I've just enjoyed is, do we want to talk about pen pals? So we can just like also.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. And so Paige had this like amazing idea, which is, hey, like we're all at home. Everyone's feeling kind of lonely. We're not really sure like how or like when to connect. So I want to send letters to my teammates. Like I want to make sure that they feel the love that I have for them and the support that I have for them in this time. And it's just been great, like building up that program. And Paige, if you want to talk about the success, because I love hearing it through your lens as well.
I love it so much. So we, like Dee said, we wanted to provide an opportunity for teammates to connect with each other. And like we mentioned earlier, like the playing field has been evened out a little bit now that we don't have to be in the office at certain times. We can have calls at any time. I can chat much more easily with one of our teammates in China or in the other geos, but we wanted to provide that opportunity to our whole organization. And we wanted to anticipate that need of connection. So that is the whole goal of our subgroup in this Culture and Community Committee. Wow, that's a mouthful. So it's a random pairing of, you know, like a bi-weekly cadence and a monthly cadence. So people can choose their cadence, and essentially you just get to meet with a new person randomly that's in the organization. We have about 200, is it 200 people? Mm-hmm. And so far we have almost half of our organization participating in this program. It grows every single week. And we keep getting feedback of people just saying how grateful they are. It's also including new hires and summer interns, and providing people a space to just feel seen a little bit. And Dee has this brilliant brain. Every week she comes up with prompts to help us get started in like conversations with people. And that has been super wonderful and helpful for people to just break the ice a bit, because that can always be a little nerve-wracking if you decide not to be a pen pal and you want to just Zoom call it with your procurement pal. What do you say, right, if you don't know this person? So it's been a really fun program and very meaningful. And I totally agree with Dee that work in the culture and community group has been by far the most rewarding, and nothing to do with my day-to-day job.
So we have a couple minutes left, and we were wondering if you guys could tell us a little bit about your interests outside of Nike, and also give us a piece of advice for us wanting to pursue our dream career. And then we have one more question that we asked the two other panelists that we had on our previous session. So if you guys could go ahead and just talk a little bit about your interests and one piece of advice that you would give anybody wanting to pursue their dream career.
Love that. Okay. So if I were to have if I were to fill my apartment with just one object and one object alone, it'd just be multiple, it'd be candles. I am an avid candle collector. And other things that I like to do with my time, like just in that regard, I love to read. I enjoy cleaning. I enjoy just like the therapeutic experience of setting aside time for yourself and just like practicing a little bit of self-care. And so for me, self-care looks like cleaning. Just other interests. I used to be a runner, so I still enjoy like going out for very long runs. I don't time it. I don't look at destination. I just go out and I'm listening to music. And yeah, I like to keep active, and I like to recenter myself and remind myself of how to be happy. Because I mean, that's something that you have to like work on, and you practice. So that'd be me.
Dee, I wrote down that you love candles because I do too. And now I know something I can get for you. It's always nice knowing your friends and the things they like. And a great note is to put in the notes in their contact on your phone, the things that they like right when they say it, so you don't forget. Okay, so interests outside of Nike. I love aviation and have always been fascinated with flight. And even though it freaks me out, I started studying and I became a student pilot last year. And I have started volunteering with a female pilot organization called the 99s. It was started in 1929 by Amelia Earhart and her 98 closest friends. So that's where the 99 number comes from. I am serving for our Northwest chapter as a co-vice chair. And even though I can't fly by myself yet and I don't have a license, I'm still supporting that community, learning about them. And I'm also doing some mentorship programs for girls in that nonprofit. So that's what I do outside of work besides snuggling my dog. I have a small little dog. And I also really love candles and playing piano. And I still teach piano on Saturdays. I have 4 students.
I love that. We have a couple minutes left, and this is my favorite question out of all of them. And it's, if you could create your own shoe line to be sold by Nike, what would it look like? What kind of message would be included behind it? And what movement would you want to create with it?
I thought about this. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so just because I miss them and I'm also vertically challenged, I would bring back the sky highs. Also, I think tall women are just gorgeous and we can own the height as well. It works for everybody of all heights. So sky highs, I would do an all black and white line because it matches with everything. Pretty much my whole wardrobe is black and white. And I think the movement that I would associate it to, I don't know if it's not new, but it would be the future's female.
Oh, I like that.
Love that. So if I were to create a shoe, I guess it would, So my nickname's D. It would be called the D Force. And it would be a high top just because, I mean, I love high tops. The idea that they're meant to protect your ankles, like that's the primary purpose, like back when they were mostly used for basketball. Anyway, so it's just something that's meant to protect. And I love that idea. But then also the idea of force, the messaging that I'd want to convey is like, you propel your own self forward and you have to do it with confidence. You have to do it with force. And I would love for it to just be like clear on the side, just to like see inside the shoe a little bit, because once again, I think we all go through life and there's so much more inside than what we're used to sharing. And so it's a reminder to let people inside, let people see the real you, and be transparent.
Let's do it. Let's get this going.
Oh yes.
I love both ideas.
We need to contact the van right away.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, ladies. This has been great. Leslie, Jasmin, thank you again for your insightful questions. Paige, Dee, what a fun show. I think, everybody has been private chatting me saying how much fun it's been. So it was just a pleasure to get to know you. And we thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, Diane, just before we close it out, there's just a few things that I want to say because I took a lot of copious notes for a 56-year-old. First of all, Dee, you love music. I'd love to know what music you listen to because I'm a music buff. I know that Diane probably doesn't know that, but there used to be a show called I Can Name That Tune, and I am a rock star on that. I am a rock star on Shazam. Just telling you right now. Paige, okay, so your thing is that you like aviation. So I live, just so you know, I live about 20 miles north of Hialeah, Florida, and that is where Amelia Earhart took off and vanished, right? But that the place where she took off from is an actual UPS building. And the UPS building, they say that it's haunted. So yeah, so if you want to, contact me about that, can't make it up, right?
Absolutely.
It's real and raw. So Hialeah is where she took off when she vanished. There's a couple things that I want to say besides that, obviously, is that none of you know, including my business partner, when I graduated from college, I actually applied back in 1986, which is probably way before your mother even met your father, or your partners ever met each other. I applied for Nike, and I got turned down. So it is what it is. That was back in 1986.
They missed out.
Well,
Nike's bad.
Yeah, maybe Nike would have crashed and burned. But listening to you, I also Googled today because I always say women of greatness, which the two of you today just jumping on the call today, you are women of greatness. But I would also like to, and I looked at another synonym, you are women of distinction. You stepped out of your comfort zone, jumped on to talk to people today to help make them be stronger and better, and you shared your experiences. I really wished that I could have had the opportunity to listen to the stories that you have, the wisdom that you have, endured and gone through. I'm overwhelmed with all of your passion and overwhelmed with all of your benevolence. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. The last thing that I wanted to say is that when y'all were talking about how you guys have some synergy together, is that I did play basketball in college, Bradford University, Division I, small school. But as a team member, what we used to say is when the ball goes through the hoop, we all score. And so it's nice to know that you all have that kind of symbiotic thing going on. So if one of you is successful and the other one is successful, when the ball goes through the hoop, it's not the person that shot it and put it through, it's the whole team that put it through. So as I end this, I would be very remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Clayton Judge, who put this whole thing together, because when the ball goes through the hoop, we all score. And if it wasn't for Clayton today, this actual webinar would have never been put together. And so you all as Nike have really worked together, helped change the future of young leaders for tomorrow. So I just want to say thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. And I look forward to staying in touch with you. And any way that you can, I will hold you to it, Dee. I want to hear what music you listen to. Paige, anything that I can help you do with aviation, which also may include getting you to Louisville and sitting in a simulator as a pilot. I might try to do that for you too. So.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Thanks, ladies, and thanks. And with that, we'll close out our show. Everyone, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Jasmin. Really appreciate it.